this episode of Soul Space Personalized. This is one episode out of a 7-part series that will be brought to you throughout February of 2023. Thank you to my guests, Rebecca Rose, Daryl, James, and Tony Rodrigues for being a part of this. The purpose or intention of bringing this to you is bringing to highlight some of the harder topics, some of the darker aspects of our world so that we can bring a greater awareness and light to it. And not only that, but to share ways that we can all heal as individuals and heal as a collective, so that we can move into a more brighter, more liberated world with better understanding, more peace and harmony. So thank you for being here and watching this series. I hope that you get something out of it. Hello everyone, welcome. It's Alisha Braché here at Cosmic Gateway, and for the month of February the 2023, I've been going into looking at various aspects of the Secret Space program, and I've brought on guests individually, and I thought it would be a really good conclusion to bring them all together in one round table to have conversations, dive deep, and share experiences and share the synergy that is created through the connection, the personal connection. So obviously we've been looking at the Secret Space program from a different aspect. We've been looking at the space, the soul, and the personalized human experience. So I really want to welcome my guests today. I have here with me, I have Rebecca Rose, Daryl James, and Tony Rodrigues. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alisha. I'm glad to be back and to be back with these guys. I'm so excited to be here with everybody. Yeah,
I have to say there's a lot of excitement about bringing the three of you together here today. And for me personally, I think that you three have been such a key component for me personally. There's been, in watching your testimony, connecting with you has been such a powerful, enriching, and transformative experience for me. And so I guess just to start off, I just wanted to throw out the question to you guys in terms of how important has it been for you to connect with others who've had perhaps a similar experience or something that's interwoven or threaded through your own experiences here and off planet? Like, how has that been enriching for you in terms of the personal human connection?
Let you guys go.
Yeah, I know we're going to do this the whole time. It's been awesome. I mean, it's been so important I'll speak for myself, but probably these guys too. I mean, I've talked to both of you guys myself, and I always felt like, whenever I talk to somebody else who's been through this, it's like, it kind of, I don't know, it's really supportive. I could just end it there. It's really supportive and so important to not feel like I'm in this zone of like craziness by myself.
Yeah,
I think that's, go ahead, Daryl, if you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, all three of us met in Grafton, Illinois. And yeah, it was a really good experience. And not only to meet others that were like that, but to see people that were accepting of your, experiences and everything like that. That meant a lot to me. So it reminds me, last time we met, we were all, Grafton, Illinois.
And for me, I'll say that, in the beginning, when I first started, there was a moment for me that I got my memories back, that I went from kind of sitting on the sidelines, being someone that was kind of into the subject, to realizing that's what happened to me. And I felt alone. The feeling of what do I do now was huge and it was like, I don't want to say painful in a way, but there was a lot of despair. And the very first thing I wanted was other people. And, I went a while before I met anybody. And there really is a good feeling, not only like Daryl said, of being accepted, to be in an area, in a public place with a lot of people that accept you for talking about this stuff, for one, is huge. And then to meet other people and like Rebecca said, to not feel like you're crazy, because I entertained that thought too. I thought, what is going on, right? Like, how am I remembering all this? What is all this? Is something wrong with me? You do your internal self diagnostic, like, is something wrong with me? And I started researching and learning, and I thought, I can't think of any other explanation other than it's real. And so you want to talk to other people at that point. And in the beginning, in the early days, there wasn't a lot of people to talk to. Now thankfully there's more, but there's so many people that are all alone that they can't even speak to their spouse about it. There's people that are waking up,
yeah,
and then most of the time they have a normal spouse that doesn't want to hear about it. And so it's a very important thing, because there's no therapy, right? Like you guys aren't going to go get therapy. You're not going to call your doctor and say, look, I remember being in a space program for 20 years and actually 40 years, but 20 years. And I hung out with a bunch of ETs and stuff. Can you recommend me a therapist? And they're going to recommend you some medication immediately that's where we're at in society. And so meeting other people is a big deal. So I'm going long. I'm running on. Don't let me do that.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you, Tony.
And I could say too, the corroborative, like when I heard, Daryl, when I heard you speak at the our conference last May, like you mentioned things that, I mean, I think always when I've shown up on an interview with Tony, like, oh, I didn't know that, we didn't know that, and you're corroborating my own experience, and that's doubly, triply amazing for me. So yeah, go ahead, Alisha. I think I cut you off.
No, that's fine. I guess that's kind of a great segue, because I wanted to go into the interwoven experiences. What has been some of the massive aha moments of listening or connecting with one another that's been really validating in your own experience? Does anything sort of come to the forefront of your mind? Is there a particular place in space, or a particular group of beings, or some sort of an experience that has been validating of your own experience to hear someone else sort of echo a similar story or experience?
Kind of tons of overlap. I call it overlap, where because we had all very different experiences. They're different. You go to different departments and different duties, different jobs, right? My experience is much different than Rebecca's or Daryl's, but there's overlap because you're bottlenecking through the same places. And there are places you go from Earth to the moon and then out, and then Mars is a very common place that people go. So there's a lot of overlap between not just us, but a lot of other people that have been experiencers that we talk, and then there's a certain amount when we talk personally off camera where there's not necessarily incidences like, hey, I remember the pizza shop there, not like that, but like emotional things of what it's like to experience the damage, the wake of the experience. I got to say that whenever we're alone, we kind of tend to talk about those things that you go through the experience, and when you come back, there's an effect, there's a side effect of it, emotionally or spiritually, whatever you want to say. And we tend to talk about that. And that's kind of how when somebody's gone through that, because it's devastating. It changes your life, whether you realize it or not. And when we look back on it after you get your memories, there's a scar. And so I think that's the most common overlap. But with you guys, there's been overlap a lot. So I don't know off the top of my head to reel out.
I know.
No, Alisha, when you say one specific thing, I'm like, there's so many that I don't even know what the one particular thing would be, but yeah, there is that.
Well, I mean, Rebecca and I, we had a session together, and it's more of a private thing, but yeah, it's like there was things that she knew that there wouldn't have been any way that she would have known that. It was very, eye-opening, I would say the least. And it was good to, another person that had similar experiences to be able to talk to like that.
I think that speaks volumes to going off the back of what you said before, Tony. You get back these memories, you're very isolated, you're very alone, you have to check in your sanity levels daily and go, oh my goodness, am I completely delusional? Have I really lost it this time? Or and then when you are able to connect or come across other people that have that sort of, it may not be the exact same experience, but there's interwoven threads that comes as a form of therapy, I feel like. And I think probably one of the biggest driving force to put this together was, it's a form of therapy to hear other people share their experiences. And I think that the importance of the the personal connection, and then being able to ripple that information out, or that energy out, is so powerful. So I guess I want to kind of take a bit of a U-turn now, if that's okay. And I guess one of the things that came to me in reflection in preparation for recording this was, when you're going through unpacking the memories, the emotions, the trauma, at what point did you feel there was a change or a shift in perspective that went from feeling very traumatized or very victimized about what you've gone through, the shift in terms of seeing it from a vantage point that perhaps all of this is working in my favor? There's a higher level of intelligence or consciousness that's working through this, that's actually in the benefit for me. And as I say that, it's a kind of a big question putting out there. I know that, and I know that we're always in different stages of that. But does anything come to mind in terms of like the flipping of the script per se?
Well, wait, I'll just go ahead. I mean, Alisha, we spoke at length probably already on this in the first interview, but my understanding that I really signed up to go down into the belly of the beast, to understand the deep workings of the system, so I could be part of undoing it. I really understood that from working in my own Akashic records and looking at my extended family, my natal family, my mother and father. It's all involved here. It's not separate. And so as I looked at their stories too, and back into the bloodline and what my father was doing in the top secret realm with the deep state, I really got my position that this was part of the plan, and I came in resourced to get myself out of the situation. So that, I don't know what point that actually happened. It was pretty quick, and it just like, it was like a 180. Everything started to make a lot more sense, in my whole perspective lightened, my heart lightened. It was a lot of healing for me. So yeah.
For me, it was just a few years ago, or maybe 4 years ago. But it was more like traumas from a child started happening, childhood, and then and then that unlocked, and then and then this happened, and it kind of like snowballed like that. It was one after another. It was like certain things I forgot that did happen that I just blocked out of my memory, and then the more and more I unraveled, the more I talked about it, the more I did remember. And I did see a therapist at the VA, and he was ex-Army, and he took everything I said. He said, he took it very. He said he believed me in a sense. He said, a part of me thinks is the way to deal with your trauma, but then a larger part of me believes you. So, and he understood the way the military just uses people for everything they have. So, yeah, it was kind of like that for me. At first, it was just the events that happened to me as a child that I forgot about, and then it just started snowballing and becoming more and more things as time went on.
I don't think I have got over it in a certain sense, and in a certain way, but I want to say that since there was a moment when I got like a breakthrough moment where I got the memories back, where a lot of memories that I had all along, fragmented memories, all kind of lined up and made sense. And I went, oh my God, I was taken. And that in itself, just having that realization, I was able to kind of put together a lot of things that were wrong with me at the time and deal with it. Like I always say claustrophobia. There's way more than that, but I use claustrophobia as an example. That all of a sudden I went, that's why, and it was easy to just dispel it. So that was good. There was a lot of therapy about it and talking about it, but I started speaking publicly in 2016 about it, and here we are in 2023, and my life has completely changed. Like I'm doing this most of my time is talking about it, and with the books coming out and other projects, what happened was it put me in touch with people that I never would have known. Like I would have never known you guys, right? Like Rebecca and Daryl and you, Alisha. I would have never met you if I hadn't kind of made my decision that I was going to speak about this and not be afraid of it. Because in the beginning, I was also very afraid of, you hear stories about people that are whistleblowers and then the men in black show up and, they get threatened. So there was a great deal of fear. And I thought, I'm just going to I can't take this to the grave. I'm going to talk about it. That's it. And at that point, my entire life changed. I don't think I'll ever look back on it. And I obviously, like Rebecca said, like I signed up for this. I'm built for this. Not many people go through it and get their memories back. And then not many that do after that point with their memories back speak about it publicly. So there's very few of us that are making it to the point where we're witnesses. And so I got to believe that I was built for that I chose it. And I'm probably bit off more than I could chew. And if I have a say in my next incarnation, we're talking about lifetimes, next time I'm going to try to take it a little easier on myself for that reason. But I got to feel like there was a purpose about it. And because now looking back on it, I thought there was going to be way more people, that I was going to be a cliff note in the subject matter and just move on. But it's something I do all the time now. So
I think you brought up a really good point, because I was kind of laughing at myself a few days ago, just like reflecting on how things unravel so intensely sometimes, and it really ramps up. And I'd love your perspective, all of you. Do you go through this very tight squeeze, intense periods where there's a lot of memory, there's a lot of information coming through all at once, and it just feels a little bit overwhelming? Because often I know that that's a part of my process, and then I have to laugh and see the humor in it, and kind of go, wow, you know, my soul, my essence, whatever you want to call it, really thought that I could do a lot in a short space of time, but perhaps I underestimated what it was like to be in a human body or on this planet at this time. I mean, can you guys speak to like a more personal experience around, I mean, you have to do specifics, but do you find that there's a real intense peaks where there's a lot that comes through all at once? And then I guess, how do you navigate that in those times of intensity? And would you agree with me that maybe we, you know, we had what's the word I'm looking for? We maybe underestimated the human experience at times from a higher consciousness perspective.
Yeah,
I would agree with
okay,
that.
I'll jump in. I am going through one of those times right now, and I'm like, wow, you know, I've said in my interviews before, like, this isn't all a done deal, and I will be getting memories back until I'm an old lady and I'm leaving this body. That's how it is. It's not over. It's not ever going to be over. And I'm constantly mind blown by what is arising. I'm like, wow, I would never have thought of that. You know, some deepened understanding about my father's position living as a galactic in tandem with his human life that coincides with other things in my story. And then I'm having all this Montauk memory stuff from the time machine, the silver bullet that I was in, that relates to stuff that's, you know, I viewed back in the 70s. It's coming to fruition now. It's kind of mind blowing. So I feel like I'm kind of, maybe I said this in our previous interview, like running alongside a moving vehicle. But I'm better at doing it at like kind of working with my like regular life and dealing with this, because I think my nervous system has kind of gotten more used to those, you know, you learn to surf, right? I didn't know how to surf at the beginning, and I've gotten a little bit better. So that's, it's definitely, you're spot on that it comes in, there's kind of waves or peaks and valleys with that for me. So,
yeah. I guess that's really validating to hear that I'm not the only one going through the pressure cooker and then the release, because now it's pretty intense time.
Well, for me, it was almost like a higher self kind of thing. I think, Alicia, you talked about this, where it's like, I almost didn't remember talking about it. I was like talking about it with other people, and it was almost like this other me was kind of like saying this stuff. And like, I was just remembering all these things. And for me, it was like that. And I actually forgot about it. I forgot about like just talking remembering all these memories and telling everybody, telling a group of people these things. And then probably about 6 months to a year later, I was like, oh yeah, gosh, I forgot I even like said that, you know. And it was kind of like that for me, and then yeah, I mean, I still do have memories of like when I'm walking my dog and I'm listening to music. It's things like that happens to me, and I'll just be listening to music and I'll start remembering things and things like that. And that's how it really, a lot of times it works for me. But yeah, for me, it was like this higher self moment where I don't know how often in my life I've actually experienced that, but it was, yeah, it was almost like it wasn't me saying these things, but it was like, yet I was like having like this long conversation about it. And then it was just something I forgot And then as months went on, it came back to me.
So fascinating. I can kind of relate to that. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Sometimes I feel like that too. Like, I can't believe I said all that stuff. And, you know, I think about it, but I try in my day-to-day life to forget, you know, to just put a shelf on and go on and do my normal stuff. You know what I mean? Hit the grocery store and not think about it. And when I do get back to this, you know, if there's an interview or whatever, a consult, whatever I'm doing, and the subject comes back up and people, you know, are asking me about it, I go, there's a moment where I go, God, it's all real. Like, I always relive it when I come back to it. When it's time to sit down for an interview, I'm like, you know, I was just in the kitchen, you know what I mean, for putting dishes away and being normal and paying bills for the month. We're at the end of the month, I'm paying some bills. And then you come in here and I've got to, you know, reassert that I lived in space at a certain time in life, and that there are other things. And then sometimes, so the other thing is, lately I'm working on a project gathering proof. And it involves me researching the things that I remember, but in a way that is proven. You get what I'm saying? Like, I remember it and I take it for granted and I've moved on. And so now, because there's the question of proof comes back up, I'm going back and researching it. And when I find things that validate that I wasn't aware of, I'm like, I get up and pace the floor. I'm like, oh, wow. You know, like, I'm still just as shocked by the proof that I dig up as I was in the very beginning when I first got the very first bit of memories. So now I'll find something else that validates what I remember, and I'll look at it and I put everything down, and I'm like almost in a panic, and I pace the floor back and forth for a while, for 5 or 10 minutes, and I go back to it and like, it's all real, you know, like, wow, it all happened. And it's still, for me, believe me, I can't speak for anyone else, but I believe if somebody came along and said, that's not what happened, Tony, that you had, this is a uroscophomosis or whatever, you know what I'm saying? If there was something that explained it, I would be thrilled, because it means that there's a lot of bad in the world that doesn't exist. But the truth is, I keep finding validating evidence over and over again. It just keeps, you know, and like Rebecca said, and I'm sure Daryl is aware, it's a lifelong thing. There's always going to be more to remember. You know, it's a lifelong process. And I tell anybody that's getting memories back the same thing. Like, there's not a pill you take. You don't just do one thing and you get all your memories back and that's it. You're hunky dory. It's a process that's going to be with you forever. Once you realize that you were in this, it's permanent.
Yeah.
It's amazing what the human mind can become accustomed to.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I like to see it as levels of acclimation. It's like tiers. It's like, okay, we get to this level, and then you kind of assimilate to that understanding, you know, that memory, or that, you know, level of consciousness, if you will. And then you get really steady in that place, and then it's like, okay, next level. And it's just this continual. And I like what you said, Tony, like there's still that, it's not like the first time when the memories come back, but it's like each time gets even greater in awestruck of like, oh wow, you know, oh, you know, it's really interesting in that way. I want to maybe go into a little bit of space, because I know that all of you have had sort of vast experiences, and I'd like to maybe talk about some of the memories that you might have had. So thinking, perhaps could we start at the moon? And I'd love to hear all of your perspectives or memories or experiences or hypotheses, like thoughts or theories around the moon and what it was utilized for, and perhaps where we might be at now with that, as in maybe going back to in the beginning of your tours and what was happening then, and maybe if you have any insight into like how that looks now or what's happening now.
Whew. Yeah. Who wants to go first on that?
Yeah, just cover the moon real quick. That's all.
Yeah, just have 5 minutes. I got Alisha.
Sorry. I said I have like 20 questions written down, and I don't even know if we're going to get through half of them, but we'll try.
For me, I mean, I saw it for Mostly like what I saw was, it was just like almost the way, and I was told this too by the executive officer. It was mostly like, as far as I remember, like a way to just make kids for adrenochrome harvesting. Like I said, there were brothels and the men were forced to work in mines. I remember that. And there were like brothels there. And yeah, and they would put these kids through looking glass portals and things like that. They'd go into underground bases and they would be untraceable. And I saw it as that. I remember there was punishment, special punishment. I remember he told me that, you know, you had to have at least 110 IQ to even get on the end of the mines of the moon. But unless you were actually sent there for a certain kind of punishment. And those are the guys that were either, you know, they didn't have their memories wiped. They would do 10 or 20 or 40 years. They wouldn't have their memories wiped, and they would come back with all their full memories. And they usually didn't make it. It was like a special kind of punishment. I mean, that's all I really saw the moon for. I just remember, yeah, they were working in mines, and they were, you know, decent living quarters and things like that. And technology that was difficult to explain, in the sense where, you know, every level you couldn't fall off. You could just walk from one end of the courtyard area to where people lived into the other, in like this invisible field. I remember things like that. But yeah, like just being told, I was told that that was a big part of it. I don't know if that was 100% all of it, but it was mostly for this adrenochrome trade, was for, you know, why they had the men working and the women in brothels and things like that.
I find that really,
Who wants to go next?
yeah.
I know we're like having a deuce here. I'll go. I was, God, the moon just kind of gave me like these little chills. I was at the German, like I would say Darkly base on the backside of the moon, and they were using me in I mean, it was a huge cloning, experimentation, hybridization lab, genetic stuff going on, slave trade. It was a slave trade hub at the time that I was there. And I was used as a really just like a psychic relay of information from the beings they had in captivity and back to the central like database. And I was also being used as a, how do I say, like my frequency as a child was, I was working the jump gate between Dulce and the moon. So between the deep dungeon of Dulce, which is just a hell realm. I mean, I'm going to start crying. Yeah, the frequency of the child helps get the cargo through. And without it, some of that stuff, because the jump gate in simple terms works by compressing space and time, and things can be lost if things aren't stabilized during the process, going in and out, right? So that was in a nutshell, like what I was doing there. I have sensed, and it was a huge, I mean, it's huge slaving operation. There's all kinds of stuff going on with the Greys and the Germans, and the Greys had their whole thing going on in Dulce. It was horrible, connected to the tunnels here on Earth. And yeah, I've sensed that currently, though, it's changed quite a bit. Like the moon, when I check into that psychically, the energy feels, I'll just say, much quieter. I don't feel that with Mars, however, but with the moon I do. Anyway, I can leave that there. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
All of that is in line with kind of what I remember. I remember it was highly compartmentalized. The times that I went back, I went there several trips for a short time, and never really spent a long time there. But each time it was a different compartment. So it was like they'd walk you to, don't pay attention, don't look down, don't look at anybody, don't look me in the eye, look down. They'd march you to your spot, and you'd go in there and do your work. There was somebody I met there, whatever, long story. But there was somebody I met there that was one of the kids that was in there for psychic training. So there was a lot of the technology. In fact, my first trip there was to get a procedure to enhance the remote viewing stuff that we were doing on the Earth in the project that on Earth. They flew us there because the equipment for the procedure was classified and was kept there. So we had to go to the moon physically and get, so there was a few procedures, and it was really fast. It was like one afternoon, and then boom, they flew us back. But there's a heavy emphasis on that. And when you talk about you know, there's a greater, broader subject. Everybody, I don't really believe that the moon is this like soul trap, but some people do believe, you know what I mean? Like, I don't personally know a lot about that, but you hear it a lot. But I do know that there are a great deal of ET, like remote viewers that patrol, that keep an eye, you know, in an astral sense on what goes on our planet. They're remote viewing us. And when we get out of line, we catch, you get their attention. And so they do a lot of intelligence that way. They're ETs, they're doing that. And they have children that they do and train for that. And many other species that are like not a real species, but like a genetic hybrid made for out of a couple different species that they keep there, and it's all for that purpose of psychic training. So, and it's torturous, and it's absolutely torture for children that are participating. So I witnessed that happening later on when I went there, and then my return. So it was the return point. When I was done with my 20 years, I went back, and it was that base. When they first took me, I had no idea what base I was on. If I was underground on the earth, I have no idea where the intake happened when they took me. But when they put me back, I know it was on the moon, because I ended up in a corner office and looked out and could see the surface of the moon there. So that process of going back, the age regression and being put back before I went home was on the moon. So, you know, it's just like the original NASA plan to go into space back in the Apollo days, is we're going to set up a base on the moon and construct our ship, and then we'll go on to the rest of the solar system. It's the same exact thing, but it's just super advanced, and they're highly compartmentalized and huge. So some people have tried to say there's just a couple bases. There's just the one base, the German made a base, and then there's another base. There's a couple. No, there's not. It's a massive infrastructure, and it's compartmentalized. So you're not allowed to see or even know that there's another level under it. And who knows how far down it goes. I really don't. I know that there were levels under it that were highly classed. You had to get super high clearance to go to the next level down. And there's a lot of tech there, and the moon itself has a large power source. That some of the tech that was there could only be on the moon because it was somebody else built, and there's a huge power source that powers things there. So power output, everybody's got free energy up there, but not high power output. And the moon has high power output, has a high power output generator in it somewhere. Anyhow,
yeah, I always get the sense, just, like you said,
when I talk to you guys, I start thinking of this stuff, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, what you said about, I mean, I think so much about how out there so much can go on that can't go on here. And specifically what you said about the power source, like they're getting away with murder literally out there, because there are things both technically and logistically and so on, they can't sort out to do here on Earth. Yeah. I mean, and the largeness, the hugeness, the layers, and the like, I felt like I could walk for probably like forever and never see all there is to see up here on the moon. It's really crazy, at least at the time I was there.
And it is a jumping point too. I remember that. Like, it's, you know, instead of ships taking directly off from Earth, they'll put you through a portal into the moon, and then that becomes like your point where then you take off from the moon. So it's unseen.
Yes, the same way that you go to an airport, you take a short flight to an airport that has bigger planes that go on far away. You're leaving the country. I remember it the exact same way as that. That's what happened. That's when I left. It was from the moon to Mars on a ship. So on a bigger ship.
Did either of you interact with Draco on the moon? I sure did, but I'm wondering.
They were there, but I mean, I really didn't interact with them that much. Mostly Germans I interacted with, all four Germans.
In the end, it was like a Zoom call with a Draco. It was more painful than Zoom, but it was on a computer. So I believe it was deeper in the moon, that it was like a clearance thing. But there was they were trying to reprogram me at the end to not remember. They knew they were looking into the future in the chronovisor that I was probably going to get my memories back, and they kept trying to give me trauma based. And then there was I believe it was a Draco that came through, and the screen moved around. Imagine your Zoom screen moving independently and kind of coming up to you and talking to you. It was like that, and it was static. The picture it would look like it was static. And so I believe there was an interaction, but really it could have been anywhere. Like the being itself on the other end could have been anywhere.
Thanks. I was just curious, because I actually mainly when I was there, at the German base. I was mostly interacting and getting orders from Draco. That's it.
I guess what I'm getting the sense that as you're all sharing is like it is this entrance point and exit point almost, like it's like this middle point that kind of then goes out into the different facets. I've heard a lot of testimony of like the entrance point beginning and then coming back, like you said, Tony. Is that because of like a proximity thing, or like, I know.
I think it
Or is
may
it-
have been there a long time. I think that the infrastructure, like I said, there's a power source there that powers a lot of high tech that they don't need to have on the earth. And the earth has a whatever geological system. So, I mean, if you want to leave something somewhere for 1 billion years, it makes more sense to be on a dead world. And you're not getting out. You're not going to just escape, hitch a ride. And it's its own jurisdiction. There's no, you know, it's out of a jurisdiction. It's like maritime law. Like you can get out to sea, you can do your own thing. So it's legal. You know, when you think about the aspect of interplanetary and planetary law, then it's its own jurisdiction. They can do their own laws. They can do their own things. So that makes sense. I'm just speculating too. Like, I don't know for sure, but I'm saying it makes a lot of sense that you conduct your torture experiment not anywhere that there's other people that may want to say, hey, that's against the law. And you're not going to say that when you're up on the moon.
Yeah, I felt like there was always, and there's a collaboration, you know, everybody's kind of accommodating whatever kind of devious things, you know, the other group is doing. Everybody's kind of cooperating with that. They might not all be the best of friends, but they're all kind of on the same page with that. Yeah, there's a almost felt like a collaboration with technology in a way. And yeah.
I just want to say there's a bad storm coming in where I live, and I'm losing you guys off and on. So just in case I lose connection.
Oh, thanks, Daryl. Hopefully that passes through.
I kind of missed some of what you guys were saying, but I don't know. I just remember being told that I was told by a first class petty officer that we had a base on the moon in 1970, like that early. And I guess the Russians didn't have the technology to get to the moon yet, but they did have the technology to send a missile there, and it was nuked, and it set us back pretty far. And it wasn't until like the 80s or so that we started getting back into the game as far as having another base on the moon. But I remember being told that much. I missed what some of you guys were saying, but yeah, we had a base as far as back in 1970. And yeah, as far as like, I don't know, ETs kind of working together behind the scenes and things like that. I don't know, it's kind of like real, you know, warfare in that way, in the sense that, you know, there are factions that are warring against each other that are trying to make peace treaties and things like that behind the scenes and things like that. So it seems like they're working together. It may not, you know, it may not be that way, but, you know, I was, you know, same thing with the United States and being in the Middle East and everything like that. You're doing things like that with different gangsters, basically. And it's kind of like the same thing in real life, you know. It's not so cut and dry and black and white, things like that.
Yeah, I feel like the situation out there, especially over time, in different iterations of the programs over time and different agendas, different protocols, it was always changing. I feel like things are even changing there now, and it feels to me for the better. I think things are shifting.
It is, yeah, definitely. I think there is a lot of, I think we're regaining control not only of the moon, but of the solar system as well. I believe we are. And I believe there are a lot of off-world Germans that are, you know, breaking away themselves and joining us and things like that. I believe that's happening as well.
Well, I think it's obvious down here. And you see the changes that are the upheaval right now. They're getting ready to disclose. And there's a few things that are promising and a few things that are kind of concerning, but it's like the situation, they know that it's not if, it's when. There's a disclosure, and the general public is made aware that we have the ability to go out there. So they're getting ready to, you know, they're doing a spring clean. You can tell there's a spring cleaning going on, and not only up there, which everybody kind of can feel, but down here, it's there's a lot going on. So I think it's premonition for that.
Yeah. I was going to share something that I viewed recently, like these memories have been opening up. I shared, I think, about the silver bullet in Montauk, where they would stick me in, light it up with power, you know, electroshock me to oblivion until I was practically dead. And it's other things that would help me see time and into the future. One of the things, the memory that came back just this weekend of all of this, is very detailed and graphic, but what I basically saw in a nutshell was that there's the extraterrestrial benevolent ETs coming in and intercepting a bombing on Earth of a US base. And they reveal themselves in broad daylight. And the soldiers at the base are like, it's like they've seen God, and they're almost weeping. Like there's this, what I'm getting at is they were not afraid. Nobody was afraid, and they welcomed it. So, and I could hear my handlers yelling at me, you know, who are they? Who are the ETs? Get, you know, they're ramping up the juice. Cause in the silver bullet, I was always blocking I was trying to block what the relay of intel was. I didn't want to tell them. Anyway, it was interesting that I feel like the reason I'm being given these graphic memories of what I was viewing back in the 70s is because these things are coming to fruition now, or potentially much closer to coming to fruition. The other thing was a positive alliance the Russians were having with another, it looked like to me, Galactic Federation. And that could perhaps be the tipping point for what's happening here on the planet. Edgar Casey's, one of his last readings actually indicated that Russia held the key to moving this all forward. So anyway, I just thought I would share that.
I was told that, I was told by the captain of my last base, the combative officer, that Russia would become the next world power. And it had to come, it came down to natural resources is how they came to the agreement of who would be the world power for the next, you know, as they call it, 1,000 years of peace and things like that. And it turned out Russia had the most natural resources. So, you know, we're going to need a lot of that to be building ships and everything else to get into the game. So that's how they came, you know, with that. You know, because he said that there was actually going to be a war between the different nations over who was going to be the next world power, and that they all came to agreement. All right, whoever has the most natural resources will become, you know, the leader. And it was Russia, and that's how it came to be. So.
I don't have any insight into that.
No.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess as good as mine.
There's a lot of like Russian prophecies too about how Russia would be to become the peace leader of the world and things like that.
Yeah, and I think within this might be written a little bit more of a paradigm shift. Do you feel, Daryl?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's going to be, you know, like I said, I was actually told about the whole 1,000 years of peace and beyond. It's like how he explained it to me. He's like, it's going to be 1,000 years of peace and beyond.
I guess that's a segue into one question I'm going to throw out there. Is why this time now in human evolution do you feel this is important to know and understand these things around the programs, the, you know, deep space, what has happened in the past, how does it bring us into now, and how do we move forward? Why is it so important to sort of, why do you think so many people are coming into their memories right now and having these experiences? What does that show in terms of where we're at as an evolving collective?
I think you have to like understand and realize your trauma before you can heal and go on to the next. I think a lot of right now, what's happening right now, I think people are going to start to realize the trauma that's been not just committed about to individuals, but to Earth itself, and how long it's been going on for thousands of years. And I think that people just have to understand this trauma first before they can go on and heal and then continue on to the next. And I think that's what's happening right now. I think we're beginning to understand our traumas, what's happening. And then the healing can begin after we face these traumas.
I was going to say that it's, you know, it's verifiable. The Earth is moving into a region of space that a lot of scientists have no idea really what it is. They call it the photonic belt. So we are moving into an energetic place that science really doesn't know anything about. They're kind of the jury's still out, but we are moving into some, a different region and a different set of, physics involved. And you can see it, way more people. The stuff we're talking about now, 10 years ago, was absolutely not, there's nobody behind it. And really our information is almost, it's almost household at this point, and so I feel like it's not an if, it's an when, and they know that, there's only so much you can hold this back. And we're in the age where also we have the technology to all communicate directly with each other much better, on a much grander scale. Also, it wasn't long ago, 20 years ago, the internet did not facilitate people putting out movies and getting an audience. And so now people do. And so information is kind of very hard to restrict for them. So it's kind of, they're going with it. Our leaders have been excellent for thousands of years of going with the trend and steering it and that's what's going on. The trend is you're going with it. You can no longer hold information back these days, even though they're trying, as despite their efforts. So they have to stay in front of it. And that's why they're, like I said, a spring cleaning and kind of a purposeful disclosure that's going to happen. So.
Yeah. Yes, the times are changing. It's like we're airing all this out. Alisha, I've had questions about, like, my God, why is it so important for me to keep talking about? Like, I've talked about it for a while. Can I just be quiet and move on with my life? And it seems like there's something potentizing. Tony's laughing. Yeah, like,
no, you're not going to stop
potentizing about this moment now, and I almost can't articulate it. Like, there's something fomenting in the collective, and more people are catalyzing more the energies of awakeness and the expansion of consciousness. So I have a personal, I even though I ask myself why I keep doing this, I know it's my own job, because I lived through Montauk and satanic ritual, and my, all the stuff with the child pornography that I was being used in, like, those particular issues too. They're not SSP per se, but that stuff I saw children killed. Like, who would I be if I'm not going to be talking about this? It has to be outed. So all of it, like all the dirty shadow shit, has to be aired out and cleaned out. Daryl, you already spoke to this, but I'm sure that's part of it. And the coming of a new world, like you said, Daryl, doesn't come without us reckoning with the trauma. And we are a traumatized society around this globe. And Tony, what you said beautifully about the connectivity around the world, like, I'm being interviewed by a Russian channel. We're going to translate a bunch of my videos into Russian, right? Like, this is really amazing. Like, and there's such a hunger in the Russian audience to hear these stories. There was a Russian SSP. That's all. I've been seeing clients who were in some kind of, they were in a space program in Russia. And so this is all kind of fomenting. Now it's coming around. So there's a beautiful arc of light contained in all of this and coming forward, spreading around the world. I feel that's what I see. Optimistically.
Yeah, there is this momentum and this sort of, I can't even put it into words. It's like this uprising of energy that's kind of liberating. It's a breaking away, it's a freeing. And I think that's very much reflected in each person's individual journey of, like, unpacking trauma and then coming to greater levels of healing and compassion and forgiveness and all those great things, and then kind of going through that multiple levels and stages. And I think that has a impact on the collective field, and we go through that together. And you can kind of feel there's this immense tipping point that we're on the precipice right now. And I feel like that's probably why I was so driven to kind of put this information out at this time. But I do want to go back and ask a question, because I think a few of you have touched on it. How does talking about your experience publicly or even personally transform you over time? Like, how has that been like a therapy for you? And do you find that each time you talk about something that's a little hard or a little uncomfortable, does that kind of give you some sort of healing or transformation?
It's been therapy the whole time. So for people to ask questions and me to answer them about you know, distant memories, for one, is like very therapeutic. So, you know, I mean, there's a bit of my selfishness about that. I'm like, please ask questions, for one. For two, it depends, a lot of it depends on the audience that you're with. So, you know, whatever, live talks are different, but it depends on the audience. Some audiences have no idea what you're talking about, so it's a different experience altogether, versus audiences that have read the book and saw everything. And so the conversation of who you're with, you know, dictates, like, you rise to the level of your conversation. You know, the person that you're with, everybody, some people you have deep conversations with, and some not so much. So when you have an audience that you get really deep, good conversation with, that understand already what's going on, it's you know, it's huge. It's like, it's very liberating feeling. It's very wonderful feeling. But sometimes when I'm breaking the bad news to a new audience that has no idea what I'm talking about, I feel a little guilty. I feel bad for them, because I know that I'm going to invoke feelings of negative feelings, right? I know that they're going to go, hey, this guy's crazy, or this is bull, or there's no way I believe this. Or if they do accept it, they're going to have to process it, and it's bad. You know, like you were talking about the child stuff, Rebecca, you just touched on some very hot button issues that has to be processed by people. And if you're unaware of what we've been through and what these programs do to people, and some of the people that have access to these programs, to be fair, are the Satanists. And so to think that they're alive and well and actually well off is a very hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. So I feel it just depends on the audience in that regard. So sometimes it's good news I give, and sometimes I feel like I'm giving bad news.
Well, I mean, doing it like this it's therapeutic, I guess, in a sense, but it's, you know, I'm kind of just talking to you guys on TV, so that's how it seems to me. But I mean, yeah, and I mean, it's a good thing. When I did it in the conference, it was very upsetting for me and frightening, I guess, in the sense that, you know, the second day I was on the base, I had to sign, you know, a big stack of non-disclosure just as soon as I showed up on the base. And then I signed even more when I joined the program. But it's one of those things where I even said it, I don't care. It's just, I saw what was happening to these kids in these cages, and I was told what they were meant for, you know, by a captain of the Navy. You know, they were meant for adrenochrome harvesting. That was the purpose. And, you know, I was tortured by people who I thought were my comrades, and, you know, U.S. Army and Royal Air Force and things like that, Royal Army, or just British Army. So, yeah, I mean, it was like a big thing of a betrayal in that sense. So it's like, I don't really care in that sense. I think it's, you know, as they say, and when you swear in to, you know, all enemies, foreign and domestic, I see these people who wear military uniforms are actually half of them are enemies, you know. So I don't really care about the things that, you know, I signed and I swore to in that sense, because it's just a betrayal. It's just a complete betrayal.
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, I felt all that. It's been overall, I think it's been really healing for me. I think it was part of the path, even though I'm not, I don't know. I could go crawl into, I feel sometimes like I just want to go crawl into a little hole again and just be there for the rest of my life. I don't know that I'm really that good at what I'm doing, but it's like the bridge is burned. I've crossed the bridge. There's no going back. There's only going forward. So I'm gonna keep milking this for my own well-being, and hopefully the well-being of the people who are listening. I know I have to keep going, and I think I have a more sophisticated understanding of why I have to do this, maybe intuitively, if not conceptually, as I keep going. And the feedback that I get from people, I know you guys are both, you know, Daryl, Tony, you're all, Alisha, we're all getting feedback that what we're doing is on track, and that people are receptive, people are healing. So to me, that's like, okay, the proof is right here. Must be contributing. So like, okay, game on, let's go. I've got a purpose.
You answered my next question really well, Rebecca. Thank you. Thank you for preempting that. I guess what sort of triggered when you were speaking, Daryl, is like, what is the driving force to keep finding the strength and courage to keep moving forward? Because I'm sure we all have days where we just don't want to get out of bed, or we don't want to like engage in that, or we want to switch off. Like, is there something that you can articulate into words that is a driving force that keeps pulling you forward?
I mean, for me, it's where there's life, there's hope. I've always, believed in that a lot, and that's, where there's life, you have to have hope. I mean, come on, and that's your purpose is to carry on. And if you feel like you have a mission that you have to accomplish, then that's it. You have to accomplish that mission. And no matter how difficult it is, yeah, I mean, it gets tough. And, who doesn't, life is tough. Who doesn't have a hard time with life? But, I mean, you just have to keep on pushing on. You can't abandon your post. You have to keep, you have to keep on with the mission, and that's all that matters. And yeah, I always live by that. Where there's life, there's hope. That's it.
Thanks, Daryl.
From day one, I've always answered I've always told myself, if somebody asked me about this, in the beginning, like I said, I wanted therapy, and I reached out to people and I did an interview, and I thought that that was it. And I was going to just go on. But my policy has always been that I'll speak about what I experienced with anybody that asks. And so far, I haven't run out of askers. Like, if anything, more people want to know, and then they come with their own experiences they want to talk about. So that's ever been all I've done is, Tony, will you come on my show? Will you come and talk about it? Or we're having a thing, will you come and speak about it? We'd love to have it. And for years there was, please write a book. There's only so much you can fit into an hour or two of interview. They wrote, please write a book. From day one, everybody did. And it took me 6 years. And I've been very, honored about the book. So you always think that every time you go in front of a camera, or you talk in front of a crowd, or you put a book out, that people are going to throw tomatoes. And to be fair, I've had some lumps, but it turns out it's easy to just ignore a lot of the negativity. There have been, for every person that has been very negative or attacked me, there have been 10 or 50 of them that were very supportive and loving. And like I said, the real payoff, aside from any kind of monetization, the real payoff has been the people that I've been able to network with. I've made a lot of great lifelong friends, and I've met a lot of people that are very, very impressive people, including you all here. And so that has been that's the real value of the life change of it, is speaking about it, is I've met a lot of wonderful people that have been very supportive, and I can't stress enough how valuable that's been to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Oh, beautiful answers. So my next question comes in like, why us? Why humans? What is it about humans that is so important for these programs, for these operations, for these experiences that we go through? Can any of you or all of you shed some light on what is it that you feel is important, unique, or special about human genetics, DNA, or consciousness, or a combination of all things?
Maybe
Yeah,
one of you know history better than me.
Anybody? Yeah, I would just say
I
we're so polymorphous. I mean, we have so much inside of us. Our DNA is a multitude, a multiplicity, and it's so tied to what happens with the rest of the races around us in this quadrant of the galaxy. We're not, it's not separate. The warp and weft of the fabric of what goes on with the extraterrestrial realm, the exopolitical realm, is deeply wed with the human and human DNA. And so there's people fighting for, what happens there. I think I cut Daryl off maybe. So.
No, I just remember because of our, we have probably the most malleable DNA in the universe in that sense. And, different species that are, dying off and things like that, like grays and things like that. They want us for our DNA. They want us for that. They want to try to create some sort of hybrid so they can continue on. And also, I believe our creativity too. Like, we really underestimate ourselves for our creativity. Like, I don't think a lot of ETs have as much creativity as we do. They've just had this technology for so long, they don't even remember how long they've had it. And they've kind of just lost that creative spark. They really don't have that anymore because a lot of these species are very old. And we're one of the younger ones. So yeah, I believe that those are like the main things that they want from us, is DNA and or imagination or creativity.
And would you say too, I mean, I would say the human heartstream and the multitude of emotions that humans have is really, ETs study that. And some ETs are kind of envious of that, I think, or it's like kind of fascinating, that the emotional body of the humans and what that connects to. It's cosmically connected. The heart is cosmically connected. So I think there's something to all that as well.
Maybe a bit frightening to some of them as well, too.
Yeah.
I think that our world was engineered to be very diverse, and because, whatever, I'm going to get into my personal opinion, right? Which is worth, an empty sack. In my personal opinion, it's worth an empty sack. But we basically have a short lifespan, and consciousness is really what the universe is made up of, and is the currency of, especially the higher you go in technology. It's like, it comes back to consciousness. That's what they're after. And because we had the human experience is a very colorful experience, very vivid, with great pleasure and great pain. So, and it's a short experience. So if you're an eternal consciousness that incarnates, do you want to be stuck being somebody that suffers for 1,000 years for the experience of it, for the tasting of it, or somebody that's, whatever, just you're locked into your experience? Or do you want to go and take several experiences over 80 or 100 years each? And so our experience of an earthbound human is very valuable to consciousness in that regard, is that there's a lot more, there's entities or minds from all over the place that want to come here to test out what they want to incarnate as. So what do you want to be for 1,000 years or 2,000 years? What kind of, would you be a boy or a girl? Would you be tall, short? Do you want to be strong or smart? Do you get what I'm saying? Like our experience, the earth as a test bed for consciousness from outside of time space is a very valuable place for that. And because of that, ETs and science of extraterrestrials that are on the level of consciousness use us as we have a great deal of interest to them, because we're not all people from one area. We're not all the same. That's why the earth is very diverse. So that's my opinion on that subject, but the human experience is very bright and very short. That's the thing, is we are very short-lived compared to a lot of people in the cosmos that are like us. So for that reason, from a soul level, when you look at it, you can bounce it. I don't know what it's like to be a girl, so maybe I'll incarnate and be a girl for 80 years and see if I like it. Or I don't know if I'm going to be a guy, right? And then you go, well, and that's great. I kind of liked it. I'm going to go ahead and incarnate for 1,000 years as this being and be kind of what I was. Only this time I'll be a little taller. Like that's what the earth is to me. And so that's why it has the glare of so many extraterrestrials to study the consciousness, because people come from all over. We're starting to get a lot of people now talking about incarnating, be like, look, I'm not from here. I was I was so your star lineage is a big deal that's coming in, and we're getting more people. And I think the kids nowadays are like on another level, really, with what they're aware of from their life, how they're incarnating, what their purposes are. Kids are like really far out there compared to what I remember when I was a kid. So, it's because the world is going into its place, and I think that that's the real reason why the earth is in the spotlight. So there, off my soapbox. That's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, really great answers. And I think that what that brings up in me is, I guess my driving force has always been this dialogue that's come through of, the end of the old world is marked when we can understand the atrocities that have happened to children on this planet, and we can start to heal as a collective and heal, those experiences of the traumatized child, whether that be in adult form or child form. And where we know where we're moving into the new world marks the new souls that are coming in, who are going to teach us a lot and take us into some very, advanced places. So I feel like, that's sort of encapsulated in all what some of you picked up on and said. But I want to go into that creative thing, because that's been a big topic for me, the creative essence, the life force essence, the being able to tap into a heart or emotion or feeling space. And I know that we're diving into some really, really dense and heavy topics because it's necessary. But I would like to kind of flick the dial a little bit and ask you all, what is it that you do to bring joyful playfulness, lightheartedness in your own life to balance out some of the dark, like kinks? You know, we have the creases, and how do you balance that in your own life? Is there things that you do that help you connect with your eternal essence and that creative spark that is so important as being a human being?
Yeah, sure. The first thing that comes to mind, interestingly, is my work with clients. It's so elevating. Like, I'm doing what I came here to do, and it's highly creative, even though I'm just serving as a conduit for energy, and it, you know, the stuff flows through me, but it's very divinely inspired. It comes from some place that's really outside of myself. So that is very, it's a win-win. You know, my clients are helped and I'm helped. So that's completely luminous in my life, as well as, you know, I'm working on a series of drawings, artwork. You know, I was a studio artist for 25 years. I stopped doing that when all the psychic stuff opened up, and I'm kind of going back into that and trying to create a body of work that's about my experience in the programs, as well as I need to go on sabbatical to write and to get the stories out, and as you have done, Tony, and, you know, in book form. So that's part of it. And for me, being on the land as well is, like, I don't know, that somehow it informs my creative process and helps me heal. I live in Alaska. I mean, it's so pure. It helps restore the purity in my own. We talk about the creative center, the sacral center, and all of that, which in me was so wounded, and is still a work in progress. And it's really helpful to me to have the support of this environment.
That's amazing to think about. It's great stuff. I'm the same way. Working with other people is a big help. You know, in my own life, I'm at a point now in life where a lot of the problems that I had have gone away. But from what I went through, I've always been I've set the bar very low for happiness in my life. I don't need a lot of events or things to make me happy. Like I'm not going to throw a fit if I have to, you know, if I go out to dinner and there's a long wait, I don't care. I don't throw a fit. So among other things, the bar each day for me to be happy, I set is very, very low. I'm very easygoing in that regard. So I guess that's a natural, it's a coping mechanism after what I went through, right? Because you know, I was abused. So I went through so much abuse that now to live a day without abuse is beautiful to me. And that's my thing. As far as what I do, I really don't think of anything possibly that I do. You know, I'm just very thankful. I'm a bit of a foodie. I'm a little overweight because food's a big deal. I'm a foodie, but I don't have an actual practice that I do outside of working with other people. That I do, at least that I do on purpose. That's what I mean. I think a lot of that stuff is just natural for me. And a little bit of the same, like I'm in Michigan, so it's the summer. I get out in the summer and, you know, I like to kayak and stuff like that. And I ride a motorcycle. So those are things that that's kind of my happy place too, is just traveling out and about.
Thank you. Sometimes it's just the simplistic things that we don't even realize that we're doing it. It's just our own little simple pleasures that give us the most fulfillment. Yeah.
Well, like for me, I the longest time I isolated a long time, and I really didn't know why. I thought maybe it was from things I went through in the Middle East and things like that. And that's like what I put it on. I was like, oh, it's because of that. That's what did it. But it wasn't. It was just something I forgot. Like I just forgot these things. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And for me, it's almost happiness. Just in the past couple of years, like, you know, probably 3 or 4 years, remembering all these things. I mean, it was a healing process, but it's happiness for me in the sense of like, oh gosh, now I know like why I have this trauma. You know, like, well, I can finally figure this out, and that in itself makes me happy, and it makes me happy to talk about it because it's more of a therapeutic thing. It was something I was just tucking deep down inside for over a decade, you know, and I just couldn't figure out like what was wrong. Why couldn't I figure this out? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a good time. I live in Florida, so that's fun. You know, it was 85 degrees a day.
Whoa, whoa.
Rub it in. Yeah.
That's always fun. I go fishing, you know, I ride bike, you know. I have friends, and now I finally I found people that are into this into my local area and stuff, and they want me to do talks and things like that, just in like local little clubs and things like that. So I'm kind of getting into like a community like that. So it's interesting, and it sounds fun. I'll enjoy this. I know I will. But yeah, talking, I'm remembering it is joyful for me in the sense that now I know, like, oh gosh, I know like what this trauma was. And for the longest time, I kept on masking it with different things. Oh, it's got to be this, or it's got to be that. I couldn't really pinpoint exactly what it was. I finally pinpointed this, and that is very, if it's an accomplishment, it feels like an accomplishment.
It's stunning, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I felt the same. I went through the same exact thing. I agree.
Yeah, I really echoed that, and I think for my own personal experience, analyzing it from so many different perspectives and trying to make sense of something that seemingly didn't make any logical, rational sense, and then to be able to connect with you guys and share time and connection and conversation just makes my whole life make sense. And that is a simple pleasure for me, is unpacking and understanding and just sharing presence. So I just want to thank you all so much for what you're doing and continue to do. I know it's been, you know, challenging journeys that you've all held, but I just want to express my gratitude for what you continually put out there on a day-to-day basis, and just your presence alone. So I have two more questions. I guess it's more of like a projection of a future trajectory, you know, personally and collectively. And I think two things come up for me in that is like, where to from here? Like, how do you feel, sense, see, perceive where we're heading, you know, for 2023 and beyond, and what potentially that could look like or involve? That's one part of the question, but also the other part of the question that comes up is discernment as well, because I think as we progress forward, I think that there's like a lot of bombarding information that starts to come through the stream. And like, how do you guys sift through your own personal discernment with information or memories? Like, do you have I have what I call a truth trigger, and so I feel it in my body when something resonates, something's true for me. Like, I'll all of a sudden feel a flux of emotion, or I'll feel like a pulse or a surge of energy in my body. So take it away, guys. I don't know, you pick up wherever you want to start, but that's sort of what's coming through me as we come into a close.
You, Rebecca.
Oh,
No, you.
I was going to say, you know, I don't because I'm a seer and all of that, and I get information intuitively. That's where I look for my information. I actually don't listen to a lot of stuff. I don't look at a lot of stuff. I'm really circumspect about what I expose myself to for that reason, because I don't want to get front loaded, whether it's about my own, like what's going on in the programs or what happened to this person. I don't look at a lot of stuff. I want to stay kind of clean. So I don't know if that's really addressing the question, but keeping kind of clear of a lot of things. And then once I have enough information about something, I'll ask somebody I trust, like, so is this the thing that's going on? Can you tell me? Yeah, it's sort of a backwards way of working, but anyway, yeah. And I think as far as I'm all about visualizing for co-creation, you know, what we talked about before, like it's coming, you know, we've been talking about this. Tony's like, well, there's a lot of ground action. What's going on? Things are changing. Things are changing. And that's what I'm putting my 2023 focal point. You know, that's where I'm seeing. That's what I will see, and what I am working on helping to manifest. So I'll leave that there.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thank you.
I think for 2023, I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know. I was just told, I really wasn't given an exact date, because I was told it's almost like a war. So you really can't put exact dates on a war. But yeah, I mean, I was told it would happen in a trickle, and it would kind of just, go out, and you would start seeing, more and more of these, more and more people passing away and things like that. And they would blame it on vaccines and things like that, or their coronavirus and things like that. But it was really because, they were being taken out. And I was, it's just, it's a big thing for me for people to understand it. I mean, what I was told, I don't know this for a personal fact, but it's what I was told. It was just everybody who you thought was like your heroes and things like that, like in the music industry and movies and things like that. A majority of these people are just scum. They're behind the scenes, they're scum, and it's like it's going to be a huge wound, I think, for the public, and they're going to have to. So they have to kind of release it slowly enough to where people just don't, lose their minds, because everything is just, it's inverted. Everything is satanic. Everything's upside down, and people just don't realize that yet. And but yeah, I was going on. What was the second part?
Personal discernment. Like, how do you navigate your own?
Oh, how do I? Well, that's a big thing. I don't. I try to stay away from a lot of stuff because I don't want it to be jumbled up in my memories. I actually listened to like Tony's interviews when I first got out of the military, and it was whenever I was first like, I don't know. It was weird the way my mind worked. It was like, oh yeah, I remember stuff like that, and then it was like I watched it like the next week, and I would be like, oh, I don't know, what's this guy talking about? It was almost like my mind was just kind of like in this purging period of just like, I have to forget this. I was still in that moment where like, I can't accept this. My mind can't accept this. I have to forget this. I have to like let this out of my mind. This will destroy me if I don't get rid of this. And so I was still in that kind of moment when I first got out of the military, like the first couple of years of just, forcing myself to just say this was just a dream, or this isn't real, and things like that. But yeah, like I really try to, I kind of stay away, from other things like that, because I just don't want it to be jumbled up in my mind. I want what I remember to stay as pure as possible, and that's it. So I stay away from a lot of other, things like that. Going to the conference was probably the most I heard when I went to it personally, like as far as other people's experiences and things like that.
I see a common thread. That's beautifully said. Yeah, and I like that keeping the authenticity of your own experience and not being kind of swirled into bombarding information that you can be impressionable by. So I think that's really wise. Thank you.
Yeah, I've called that clouding up the water. And so there was a time when I watched a lot of other things, and I realized quickly that it did make it hard to process my own memory too. To answer your questions, so the trend we're on is a curve going upward, so towards disclosure, which I'm already getting sick of saying the word, towards the truth coming out about the space programs, the deep space program, extraterrestrials, and some of the technology that we already have. They started a long time ago letting it out, or it was slipping out. Some of the info was getting through the wall that they had to hold it, and so they started to let go. And we've seen it, for the last 15, 20 years, a little bit has come out a little bit, and recently the curve of information has gone up greatly. And then because when we saw UAPs on the news, when they admitted the physics behind it, when they admitted that the crafts were going 50,000 miles an hour and into orbit and back again and underwater, as soon as they admitted that, then that shut up academia. The scientists were always like, look, the physics of UFOs aren't real. You guys are you guys are conspiracy theorists. You're imagining this. It's not possible. So when they put that on the news, that was a bigger moment than most people give it credit for, because what it did was it put academia to task to say, look, explain that. This is real. This is the government. This is on your news. This is no longer a conspiracy theory at all, or whatever you want to call it. And then they rebranded it from UFO, because you laugh at UFOs, but nobody laughs at UAP. So they gave it a rebrand and a new face. So that was a big check mark of curb. So I expect 2023 to be more of the same, more of a ramping up of information on an official level, and more from people like us coming forward. So the real task is for everybody to kind of work together, because there's a lot of people that want, there's a lot of ego that says my aliens are better than your aliens, and that's going on right now. So 2023 is going to be kind of a duking out between that, because to answer your second question, there's a great deal of pollutants of witness testimony coming forward. So I'm fully aware of that. There are people that are just, they're a 3-letter agency. I'll say it right now. There are people with CIA background that are coming out as witnesses, and it's kind of BS, when you read it or when you look at it. It's either too limited or too extravagant in information. So it seems like they just want to dilute real testimonies. So that's all I've seen. And then we've seen
Oh no, we've lost Tony temporarily. Hopefully he'll come back, because he was on a good roll there. But I guess what I wanted to say is, as I'm listening to all of your wonderful responses, is, do you think that there's a correlation between being in your own oh, you're back. Keep going, Tony.
Look, I was here the whole time.
Oh, no.
I was here, and it had a little thing, and I was like, no, we lost Tony. I said, I'm here. So I think I got the most of what I was saying. Hopefully got on there, that, we're seeing a very real interference, no pun intended, with people that are telling the truth versus people that are telling a sky high story. And so that means we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Right. They wouldn't care if there wasn't substance to us. They wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of that. So discernment's very real. And if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And I would just say that. And a lot of people, like Daryl said, quite frankly, a lot of people you think are their hero are not. And so I'll just leave it like that, because the community is definitely fracturing right now, and stick with people that have verifiable evidence. I mean, I'm not saying that people that don't are not genuine, right? But there are a lot of people that have verifiable evidence, a great deal of overlap or physical stuff. That's why, like I said, that's why I'm working so hard on proving my account. I was fortunate, to have things that I could prove that substantiate me. I have fortunate, and so I'm expanding that. I'm going to detail it and put it in. We got articles coming out and other shows that are going to be. So where's the proof? I can just say, here's the link. So people with proof kind of stick together and just require that. People that don't have physical evidence or don't have a lot of proof, I'm not saying don't listen to them, but I'm saying, keep it to heart, because also the fakes are saying the same thing. So there are people that watch a ton of videos and then they come out and parrot it. They want attention or whatever it is. And so those are real. And I don't want to take anything away from anybody. Watch what you feel like watching, and don't watch who you hate. If you don't like them, don't watch them. If you don't like me, don't watch. But I mean, people that have there are people with the verifiable stuff. So I would stick with them in the coming years.
Thank you, Tony. Do you think that there's a correlation between our own being in our own personal authenticity and our own personal truth, and really pushing forward that changes in the collective field to open more portals to truth coming to light? Do you think that goes hand in hand?
That's so
I
loaded.
think.
Yeah, sorry.
That is, yeah, right. But that's not a minefield at all, right? But I think your life changes. I think people that are honest with themselves lead a better life, period. So you get along better in life if you can be honest with yourself and honest with other people. People that are faking it tend to, have these very spiky lives of all this drama and stuff. People that are faking, trying to look better than what they are, have a hard time in life. It's like sugar. It works great for a short time and then it crashes. So being honest is actually a awesome life skill to have.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll just follow on from that, and I know we're going to wrap up, but even though I would love to sit down and talk to you guys for many, many more hours, I think for me, in terms of like discernment, it's always been an intuitive hunch. So I'll go through an experience where something will come through to me, and I'll sit with it for many, many days, and then I'll ask, can I please have something that's going to help support this process for me? And then I'll get an intuitive hunch, and that's how I found the three of you, and then the external validation came back, and it was just a reaffirming of what I already kind of knew within myself, and it was just giving me that mirrored experience back. So I always encourage people to sort of sit in their own process, and then when they're ready, you know, ask for the guidance, you know, just set the intention for support, for something to come back that's going to be supportive, or a corroborating sort of validation experience, or to witness someone. So that's sort of my take on it. But as we wrap up, final thoughts, anything that you would like to share to any of the viewers as we move forward that you think is important right now?
What just came to me there was just personal integrity on whatever journey you're on is the ripple effect we're creating here. Not just with the SSP material, but with what we're doing here on the planet.
Yeah, just work on yourself. Keep your eye out. If you're watching this show, you're already on the search for information, for good new information that's outside of the mainstream, and keep it up. There's going to be plenty more to come, I imagine.
I mean, I would just say get ready, you know, for it, because yeah, it's coming. And like I said, we're going to have to deal with, you know, we're going to have to sort out our own personal effects first before the secret space program will come up, you know, like, you know, off-world beings and things like that. That will happen, but we're going to have to go through, you know, like I said, the healing part of, you know, those who you thought were your heroes really aren't. So just get prepared for that. We're gonna have to go through that first, and then I believe that's how it's gonna work. Then the programs will be, the off-world beings and programs and things like that will come to the public's attention. But first we have to, you know, sort out our own mess.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you, Daryl. Well, thank you so much, all three of you. You're just a wealth of knowledge, inspiration, and in my humble opinion, integrity. So I just, once again, thank you for being here, coming together for this project and sharing all that you have individually and on this roundtable. I want to thank everyone for watching. And of course, I highly recommend you all to connect with any of these wonderful people that you see on the screen. All the details will be in the description box below. If you feel a resonance, if you feel that they can support or help you in any way. And I'm sure we'll come back at another time and delve deeper when the time permits and the stars align. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you so much again, Rebecca, Daryl, and Tony. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great seeing you guys again.
Yeah, very much.